Alright, take 6 then. Hey guys, this is the first of what I'm hoping will become a series of little webcam chats between myself and you, wherein I kind of isolate a lot of the overly wordy and soapboxy stuff I tend to delve into on the podcast and kind of put it here so I don't bog down the podcast. We'll see how this goes. So hypothetically, you are a guy named Michael Hale. You are riding the train to work because it's New York and that's really your only option. And you look across the subway car and you see none other than Neil deGrasse Tyson, probably the most famous scientist in popular culture right now, sitting across the train car from you. He's at work, who knows what, probably something extremely sciency, and you don't want to say anything because maybe he doesn't want to be noticed either, and you feel kind of socially awkward sometimes, and we've all been there. So instead you decide you're going to take a picture with your phone. Freaking Sonic, man. Yeah, one take was a pipe dream. So you take a picture, you decide to throw it online with a semi-satirical humorous caption because that's what you do online, and you decide that you're going to call this guy the most visible and prominent scientist of our time a nerd. And just sit back and wait for the laughs to roll in, because this is after all humor. You may be shocked to learn that the laughs did not in fact roll in. Extremely florid insults, verbal onslaught of the nerd elite, particularly because he dared to call a recognized scientist a nerd, which I thought wasn't supposed to be insulting anymore. I mean, that's why I have my podcast. It reminded me of something we discussed in our most recent conversation, which you'll get to hear in a few weeks, that really has been bothering me for some time. Why do we like a comic book guy from The Simpsons as much as we do? He seems like a character that's designed to irritate you, but we like him, we enjoy him, because in his shop, he's the master of all he surveys, and you're in his kingdom when you're in there. But outside his shop, he's utterly powerless. It's a contrast that is sympathetic and people could identify with, and they kind of almost makes the character endearing. I hesitate to think that we would like Comic Book Guy nearly as much, hypothetically, if he, say, defeated Quimby in an election, became the mayor of Springfield, and then proceeded to lord it over everyone exactly the way that he did back when he was just Comic Book Guy. We're not sure that we would find that quite as endearing because the contrast would be gone. He wouldn't be trying to talk down to us from way down there. He'd be actually talking down to us from way up there. Unfortunately, even though the tables have turned in our culture since that character was created, and nerds now are in a position of power in pop culture and in real life, a lot of us have just not been able to switch that off, and we've decided to start going on the offensive. Here's how it used to be for nerds. In pop culture and TV and movies, we were the outcasts, we were the rejects. At some point during the 80s, they decided that, hey, these guys are kind of sympathetic, let's start making them sort of quasi-protagonists. So when we became the protagonists, we became the underdogs. You know, everyone's rooting for us, even if they don't really quite want to be us. But everyone understands that, you know, we're on the losing end of things. So once in a while, when we do turn the tables, like in, say, Revenge of the Nerds, it's hilarious, and it's about time, and everyone's pulling for us because it's an isolated thing. Unfortunately, in real life, a lot of us experienced sort of social awkwardness, exclusion, and rejection that mirrored what we were seeing on TV and in the movies. And it didn't feel quite so fun when it was happening to us for real. Like the characters that we watched, we were on the outside, but we swore to ourselves that one day things are going to change. And if we ever managed to get on the inside, then we were going to change things, and there wasn't going to be any more of this making fun of everyone on the outside. Man, this melts fast. Oh, sorry, I had to get all my kids' toys moved into her room so she could have quiet time. Let's fast forward to sometime in the mid-90s. Suddenly, when you look around, computers were everywhere, and this thing called the internet was helping them talk to each other. I don't think anyone could have anticipated the extent to which that would completely revolutionize society. Overnight, culture pulled a handbrake turn, and the usual social circles that we grew up with in high school were turned on their heads. Suddenly, the movers and shakers in the business world are guys like Bill Gates. And suddenly, the nerds that everyone used to make fun of and shove into their lockers in high school were the nerds who were calling the shots for everyone and everything. And in pop culture, they were the nerds who were making fun of everyone else. Now, the technological revolution, the IT revolution, and the transformation of culture through the improvements in mass communication, those are all good things. And the fact that we now have celebrity scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye, who was a profound influence on my childhood, is a very good thing. People are into science and technology and computers, even if they don't really understand them, at least they're showing enthusiasm toward them. And those are all good things, but I think in our rush to the top and in our current need to sort of celebrate how everything has changed, I think we lost sight of one particularly important thing. We're not the underdogs anymore. Curiously, all of the cookie dough had settled to the bottom. You know, it takes a lot of work to be in this exact physical condition. I'm not gonna lie. No, we're not the underdogs. I don't think that people have realized that, because this cultural inversion, like I said, happened almost overnight. Nerds rose to the top of things, and in pop culture started becoming cool so fast that I don't think we ever had the time to learn how to be cool, or how to be on top of things. It never really occurred to us what those things mean. Now, we throw labels around like fake nerd, fake gamer. We complain about hipsters stealing our style. And we don't understand why everyone is trying to be like us. But we have so little experience with being cool that we don't realize that's what it means to be cool. Everyone sees what you do and how you look, and they see that people seem to like that, and they want to be like that, even if it strikes you as shameless appropriation. I don't think that the full meaning of this cultural inversion has really fully registered yet with most people. I don't think that we understand what it means, and consequently, we're still hanging on to the narrative that we constructed back when we were the victims getting stuffed into our lockers, when we were the underdogs at the mercy of the jocks or whoever was on top at our particular high school environment. It was usually the jocks, let's be honest. And we still let that story define us, even though it doesn't really define our reality anymore. When people tell us we're cool, the only frame of reference we have for that, besides what we see in pop culture, is the cool kids and how they treated us. And, you know, oh, to be cool, obviously it means you do this and this and this, and you treat people this way. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost like something out of Nietzsche. You know, when you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. And when you fight monsters, or in this case, when you fight to get ahead of the cool kids, you start to become just like them. I realize I'm going to get laughed off the internet for making this comparison. Just get it out of your system now. But I think that in pop culture, in terms of films, television, the best example I can think of, the best depiction of what's happened as far as nerds rising to the top, is actually the movie Mean Girls. Cthulhu dice, man. I haven't even learned the rules yet. It's supposed to be a really easy game to play, but all I know is that there's a 12-sided die with Cthulhu on it, which I think that's pretty awesome. Oh, come on! Fine. For the benefit of the handful of you out there who won't admit to having seen the movie, I will summarize it for you. The character played by Lindsay Lohan, pre-crazy Lindsay Lohan, gets to a new school and is pushed down the pecking order by the alpha girls, and she gets so wrapped up in overthrowing the particular alpha female who's on top of that whole thing that she goes through the series of crazy shenanigans and pranks and really sabotage, which is supposed to be funny and endearing because it's a movie, and finally pushes her off the ladder, more or less, and gets to the top of the social ladder at this school, and only then realizes that she has, over time, come to start acting just like the alpha female she just bumped off. And I don't think we realize it, but some of the hurtful language that was used against us back in grade school, some of the way that we were kind of excluded from the social conversation back in the day, it's really come full circle in a lot of cases, and especially on the internet, it's very easy to be just as mean, if not meaner, than any of the bullies we ever bumped into in high school. This chair is disturbingly quiet since I shot WD-40 into it. I'm kind of disappointed now. On a slightly more serious note, where this really starts to become apparent today, well, it's apparent everywhere, but it really becomes especially obvious is when the conversation involving nerds starts to stray into sort of quasi-political issues where science has a sort of authoritative voice. And this is not a political discussion, please. I have no interest in arguing about the politics. I am really interested in discussing an attitude. But everyone likes being right. We like being right. Nerds, we really like being right because for a long time that was all we felt we had going for us. We like when people look to us for authoritative answers. But for being the voices of reason, we really don't handle dissenting opinions all that well. And I get it. Celebrity scientists really represent the rhetorical authority of the scientific establishment in our culture. When you get somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye or Richard Dawkins or somebody else making an assertion on something of societal import, even if technically it might lie slightly outside of their particular field, and somebody dares to disagree with them, they're just immediately pounced upon. Granted, the disagreement is sometimes voiced in a particularly poorly thought out way, but so's the response. We have this desire to assert our factual correctness and intellectual authority very forcefully, very emphatically. This is what science, capital S science, says. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Factually, you are probably completely correct. The problem is that when you look at other facets of our society, we live in a very polarized culture. Everything is wrapped up in things like generation gaps. We live on one side or the other of this aisle across which decisions are supposed to get made in our society. We're very obsessed with left and right, with, the coast and the flyover states. We create these dichotomies that aren't really very constructive. And it makes it very easy when there's something that we are emphatic about or passionate about, like science, for politicians and mass media to be able to get their hooks in and use our attachment to those things to manipulate us into buying a product, whether that product is an actual material product or a worldview or a platform full of candidates to vote for. I could be overthinking it. I'm probably overthinking it. It could just be as simple as everyone loves a good fight, especially between two groups of people who consider themselves intelligent, educated. There's a lot of people on the internet who are probably sitting back and waiting for a good quote to get generated so that they can dig it up, cut it out of context, macro it onto an unrelated picture using a poor choice of fonts in Photoshop, and then have that ready to bring out whenever they get to win an argument on their pet issue. It might just be that simple, I'm not sure. I don't know, back in grade school, when we were constantly getting picked on and shoved around, we realized that maybe we couldn't effectively hit back, but our wit and our words could be sharpened to the point of being weapons themselves. We're so used to having to do verbal sparring to defend our interests, our opinions, the passions, and things we value. I think it's really hard for a lot of people to switch off that sort of intellectual gladiator instinct. Our words maybe aren't deadly, but when they're properly sharpened and carefully aimed, they can really hurt people. At the very least, they'll alienate people that we could be reaching out to. A lot of nerds consider themselves socially conscious and have what they feel are important things to share on a number of issues. Do you really want to push away the people that you think need to hear that the most? Anyway, I know I kind of got long-winded and went on for a while. Thanks for hearing me out. I'm just looking back and looking forward, and I'm wondering to myself, when did so many nerds go from being bullied to being the bullies? And I'm hoping that there's something in here that we can learn, some way that we can sort of go out there, interact with people in pop culture, and even interact for a position of power, but do so in a way that is considerate of others and that is encouraging actual dialogue and not just dunking on someone because we have the right answer. I hope that you get a chance to think about this. If you disagree with me, please let me know. I would definitely invite any sort of differing opinions. But if there's anything that you took away from this, I hope it's to know that you, if you consider yourself a nerd, you're not the victim anymore. You're not the underdog. No one's pushing you down. You have a chance now to decide whether you are going to be the new bully or whether you're going to let your knowledge and your words make a positive difference for the people around you. Killed off the whole thing. Have a good day, guys. Take care.